Okay, well, hi guys. Welcome to the first discussion that we're doing. We're going to be talking about just different subjects with some different people about some things that are relevant to us. So hopefully this will be interesting to you, and we'll have some fun while we do it. Today we're going to be talking about basically what are the changes going to be post COVID-19 for smaller churches. So what are the things that are going to be different? What are the things that are going to be the same? How, as leaders, do we prepare for that kind of change? What impact might it have on the church? And so it's great to be joined today by my esteemed panel of very wise, dignified guests. So we've got John. Do you want to introduce yourself, John?
Yeah, I'm John Watson, pastor of Elton Green Community Church in South East London.
Good. Chris, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Chris Spicer, part of Mosaic Church in Coventry, and yeah, live in the Midlands.
Sorry about that. You obviously can't hear mine. That's obviously literally that joke. Yeah. And Jonny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jonny from City Church in Chester.
Good, part of the leadership team there. So I thought it would be worth just starting off by just sort of saying, well, what have you guys been doing in your churches? How has it been working? You know, what activities have you been doing? How have you adapted to the change? So I don't know, should we kick off with you, Jonny? So what have you guys been doing in Chester?
So the first thing we did was get into Zoom. Zoom, I feel like I was singing that Craig David song to Rachel today, 7 days. But just with Zoom. On Monday, Zoom. Tuesday, we had another Zoom on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we had another Zoom. So yeah, we've obviously embraced Zoom. And the first thing we did was try and, obviously we had house groups before. So we sort of reshuffled house groups and started these like connect groups, which is just very basically a way for groups of people to literally just stay connected week on week. That's probably been one of the highlights of what we've done, and people have massively bought into it, and we're not trying to achieve loads. I said from day one to our group that we're not about to, you know, launch a big Bible study on apps or anything. I think it's a bit tricky with the technology and everything, but literally we just go round and every family or individual says, this is how my week's been, you know, in lockdown, in isolation, and just it's people have just been really open, really honest. And I found we've connected and had community far more doing that than I have done through a normal house group where people are sort of a lot more polite and British about things because of the nature of what's going on. People are much more happy to just say, actually, I'm feeling really down, really rubbish. Please pray for me. So they've been very good. One of the things we tried to do very early on was to just engage the community in Chester around our building in particular. Just in conversation. So we sent out letters to the community. We all went out and posted letters just saying, obviously this is a strange time. We're praying for you. We love you guys. Is there anything we can do? Do you want shopping? That sort of thing. Just to keep engagement up and to sort of show the community that we're still alive and well, even though it's a crazy time. A lot of the ladies have sort of organised a kids group, which has been great. So each day there'll be like challenges for the kids. And then the kids do a video and post it. So the kids are sort of feeling plugged in, which has been nice. And it's just a lot of fun. Obviously, online services we're all doing, which is strange, and trying to think of good ways of doing that. Starting YouTube channels. I don't know if you guys had YouTube channels anyway. We didn't, but now we do. And everything gets put onto there. More content. And we, again, just trying to stay outward looking and stay sort of just connected to the world around us and our community. We sent a video to the care home that we do work with, and everyone and the kids in the church sort of did a little video for the care home, and that was great. They received that really well. There's sort of men's and women's studies going on separately in the world of WhatsApp. And I think, again, one of the really positive things was a lot of the ladies have really stayed plugged into the toddler group that the church runs. And as a result of that, again, people's levels of honesty and just being willing to be vulnerable. A lot of people from that toddler group have said, actually, I'm stuck inside. I'm really struggling. and they've actually asked for help or received help quite gladly. So we've been able to go and get shopping for those guys. And
I think that's a really interesting, I mean, we maybe pick this up a bit later, but I think it's really interesting. One of the challenges or one of the questions around this whole thing is like, is the online thing real? You know, like real community. But from what you're kind of talking about, actually, it sounds like you're getting that real is more, there's more real, not less real. If that's fair.
Yeah, I think so. My experience so far is that I think because of the nature of what's happened, it's sort of just cut through any sense of needing to be sort of guarded or, you know, appropriately polite as a British person or whatever. And people are much more willing very quickly to just say, yeah, guys, if I can just say I'm really struggling, I need help. It's been very good. I don't know if have you guys found that?
Yeah. We've found that people are exactly that, more open and more vulnerable. I think across the nation, we're having to face our mortality.
Yeah.
And I think people are waking up to realize life that they had before is not what they've got now. And we're finding more engagement in small groups, connect groups, and people willing to say online what they wouldn't say face to face.
Yeah.
I think it's a fascinating point, really, because I think kind of you know, one of the challenges we come and talk about in a bit is that obviously when the church goes back to normal, whatever that looks like, I think we need to appreciate that actually people have been more open in some ways, or find this medium actually easier to be more open in than they do in face to face, which is a really just an interesting question, I think, you know, and something maybe we could pick up in a minute. So, Chris, I don't know if you want to tell us a bit about what you've been doing in Mosaic with your church, how your church has responded.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been that involved with all that's going on, but we do a Sunday morning for about 45 minutes. We have worship. We're kind of getting better at what we're doing. And then we're going to start on the 7th, something after the main gathering online. We'll do something just for children, because we sent out a survey asking the whole church, what do you think what we're doing? Are we engaging right? Is this meeting where you're at? And it was all very positive, but there was a lack for the children. So we're starting that. We're still doing food bank every day. There's something going down on the Hope Centre, feeding people coming in, what have you. This weekend, we do a city praise, and there's 51 worship leaders coming together to do a citywide praise online, which is incredible. And then June, they're starting a whole citywide prayer initiative that will pray, hopefully, in up and down every street in the city. So locally and also city-wise, there are some great things going on. We do these Mosaic moments every day. But I was interesting on the discussion you guys were getting. I mean, my generation, I find Zoom a pain in the neck, to be honest. It's just, come on, I want to see, you see the face of the person, but being in the room with the person is totally different. So I'm getting zoomed out, and I don't do that many. And like you were saying, there's so many videos, and some people don't know how to set themselves up for a video. And I'm tired of seeing too much nasal hair. You think, come on, guys, get this sorted out. But yeah, we are doing a number of things.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. John, what about you?
Yeah, well, we took a similar kind of what Chris has just said. We have a Sunday online presentation church service, which is on YouTube. And we were doing YouTube streaming beforehand anyway, so that was quite an easy kind of changeover. And so, videos, we do a lot of videos, not a lot now, but so we are using YouTube a lot. And it's interesting, people talk about content overload. It's been something that I've been thinking about a lot, you know, how much information we're putting out there for the church. What does the church need? But yeah, so our Sundays is pretty much, you know, time of worship, and then a message, and then notices, some testimonies if we get them from the church, and then that's scheduled to go live at 10:30 on a Sunday. This Sunday we're going over to the Life Church platform, which they're giving out free. I don't know if you've seen that. It's very good, and it means that you can schedule things, and there's online chat, and they have the Bible app there. It's worth looking at. I'll send the link. It's something that Oak Community Church were using, and I had a look at that. And it is, if you do want to do, it's either you can do it with live streaming, but if you go down that route, it is quite a good system, and then they're giving it out for free. So we've been using that, but our main focus quite early on was about our midweek groups, our community groups. So that was really, I mean, the vision for us in Eltham is to develop those groups as the core part of what church life is anyway. So that was the real focus. So very early on, obviously getting Zoom and getting the groups together and helping to facilitate that was really important. And now it's really just looking at how we are reaching out, how can each group not only just connect, but also reach out and things like that. That has been a bit of a challenge, I think, because it's hard to think of ideas in lockdown. So, but we've been trying things, and some things haven't been working. This afternoon, or this morning, we're going to start a Christianity Explored group online with some mums that we've known through the youth cafe we were doing before the lockdown. And so we're going to see how that goes. We tried coffee chats, but we were publishing the Zoom room, and that didn't really work out well. Some were jumping on for other reasons. So
you got Zoom bombed, didn't you, John?
We did. Fortunately, there was only myself and one other church member in the room at the time. So, but yeah, we're just trying things really. But what people are doing individually, what we're finding is that there's been more people that are inviting people to our Sunday service. So I've been seeing that as an opportunity to invite people to that. And when we're doing that, think about what we're saying and adding the gospel in there sort of intentionally as an opportunity for people to hear the good news. And like Chris said, 45 minutes. I mean, we went to an hour on Sunday because, which was the longest we've been. I mean, we've had 15-minute sermons, 20-minute sermons. So it has really kind of cut down the kind of length. But yeah, so generally it's Sunday is a view on Sunday. We meet in a Zoom room as church just to chat. We talk about coffee beforehand. But it's the groups that are the key sort of area of our sort of investment at the moment. We have started we have prayer meetings on Zoom, got a men's chat on Zoom, ladies have a coffee chat on Zoom, which is sort of church wide. But generally it's like, let's get the community groups established and growing, and yeah, that's the area really.
John raises an interesting point, and I don't know whether we'll discuss it, but how do you balance between people from the church coming in on a Sunday morning and how those are looking from the outside? Because if you're going to have it for just the church, that's one thing. But if people are looking in from the outside, I mean, we asked the question, would I share our Sunday morning with my non-believing friends? Well, at the moment, I'm not sure I would, because I think it needs to be aimed more for those who know nothing about Christianity.
Yeah. I mean, what I've been thinking, Chris, because I think it's a really important question, and which I think in my mind it helps if we have a real focus on the community group and say that is where the church is gathering. We want them to invite people into that, but that takes time, particularly in this sort of internet-based, Zoom-based kind of way. But also, if you've got the skills and the time to schedule your worship and your sermon at an appropriate times, you know when those times are starting. So on Easter Sunday, I was inviting people to come at 11 o'clock to hear the message. But the worship started at 10:30 because I didn't feel that the worship, people would understand that, and I was concerned that they would switch off before the message came. So again, it depends on how structured you want to be, where you could actually think about how you could do that. Or you have one sermon just for people who don't know Jesus, and you schedule that for 11:30 or after the meeting, because you can do it anytime. You can do it at the Saturday afternoon. The question is a resource to the church. Say, invite people to this. That I think is the biggest challenge, is getting people to think like that. Who can they invite? And getting that kind of even advertising on Facebook, which is what I've been looking into. Actually advertising our church on Facebook and pointing them to our Sunday services. I think that's a real opportunity.
Yeah.
Again, it's still trying things.
Yeah.
I think there's two things. I think, you know, as we kind of move on to talk about how, you know, what's going to be left, I suppose, once we, you know, this stuff kind of comes to an end. I think, you know, there's two limits. There's what impact is it going to have on the engagement of the church, and in what sense is online here to stay after this stuff, but also in terms of like how we engage with those that don't know Christ. And I think it's interesting. I mean, so our church, River Church, we made a decision really, like, basically straight away. First thing we did was we said, look, in a sense, our strength as a church is our community within the church. That is our strength. We do that really, really well. We're not professionals. We're not particularly, like, our church isn't kind of got those sort of really sort of clever technical people. And so we made a decision just to move everything to Zoom, including our Sunday morning meetings. We do our Sunday morning meetings in Zoom. And we do like a morning devotional every morning. We've been doing it for the last 5 or 6 weeks now, however long it's been. Every 8:30, 20 minutes. And like, you know, we get every morning somewhere between about 15, 20 people, sometimes up to 30 every morning. We get about sort of 60 or 70 on our Zoom call, you know, including families, sort of maybe a bit more on our Zoom call on a Sunday morning. But for us, we made a decision to focus on really our church community. We haven't, because we found it hard, actually. Our church has found it difficult to connect with other people outside, you know, in this kind of current world. Just being honest, we found it really difficult. We've got a really good, active online social media presence, and the lady that runs our stuff, she does a great job in terms of posting stuff almost every day. But we have just found it hard. We haven't found there's been a huge amount of engagement, and so I just think it's interesting. So if we pick up this idea of engagement within the church, and then we'll come on maybe to think about engagement outside the church first. So kind of once this is finished, so and I think the idea of being finished is an interesting question, because, you know, just because in 2 or 3 weeks time the government released the lockdown, I don't think we're going to finish with this at all. I mean both of my brothers have got an autoimmune condition. They've got Crohn's or some version of that, which is a stomach thing. And so they've been told they've got to self-isolate for 3 months. They've got a letter from the government. And I wonder whether they'll be allowed out, actually, even after that. I wonder whether the government will still say, no, sorry, you've got to basically remain in self-isolation. And so I think this whole idea of returning to normal is going to be, you know, it could be a year before everyone is able. And even if we are able altogether, are people going to want it? I mean, Chris, I mean, you know, you're kind of northwards of 50. You know, would you know, once if the government turned around in next week and said you can go out again, would you go back to church again, do you think?
Well, I think my generation, it's like a hibernation, and how they're going to come out of that hibernation, there's going to be a lot of nervousness around. And we had a leaders meeting last night, and there was talk of 18 months to 2 years before any sort of new normal will be created. And I think for those in a high risk, they will be told not to go out. So it is very difficult. And some people will be nervous. Even if you can have a larger gathering, they'll still be nervous about getting in there. I mean, we have B&Q, the superstore, opened up, and I read online some people are nervous even going into those places. So there's a lot of fear around, and I'm not sure how that will work.
And so I think the question for me is, if we're thinking about what comes next, you know, say 2-3 weeks time, or, you know, say a month's time, the government said, right, okay, you can meet again as a church. I mean, we don't know, but let's guess it's going to be a month's time or whatever. You know, actually, how are we thinking about those within the church? Are we just going to go, great, it's back to normal, or are we going to? What have we done over the last sort of last 6 weeks or the last couple of months, as it will be, that we think, yeah, we're going to keep doing that? I don't know what do you guys think?
I think it depends on our as leaders, our perspective on change. I think, you know, there are some people that really like change. I like change. I think when change comes, that's when my energy levels increase and my creativity increases, and I just see opportunity upon opportunity. There are some that are not like that, that don't like change, and what they're looking for is, how do I regain what used to be? So, I mean, my perspective is there's certain things that I'm really wanting to happen because it actually fits with where I feel the church needs to go in terms of our vision. So I'm not answering the question there, but I'm in a sense of saying it might depend on how we identify and how we like change. So if we like change, I think there will be more change. If we don't like change, then there'll be less. I don't, you know, I know that's not really answering the question, but it'd be interesting to know from us whether we like change or don't like change.
Yeah. I mean, I love change. So for me, I as you like you, I think I'm seeing this as, I suppose I'm seeing this as an opportunity for the gospel. I'm seeing it as an opportunity for the church, which is why we're having a conversation like this today, because I think my hope is that leaders don't slip into this way of thinking, oh, we just got to try and get back to how things were, because I just don't think things will go back to how things were. And I think actually that even if you tried, I think you'd be missing something. And so, yeah, I mean, that's my view. I don't know, Jonny, what do you think?
Go on, Jonny.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at your sheet as well, Tim. I think one of the things I've been thinking about is essentially you asked the question, you know, do you agree that this season will lead to a significant lasting change? I don't think I do. I don't want to be like a prophet of misery, but what I feel a little bit like we've got a period of time which is going to be an opportunity, but a little bit like one of those old school toys where you pull the string out and then gradually it just retracts back in. I feel like that's going to be our direction of travel, and that we've got a period of time where things will be different and shaken up. But I think inevitably our direction of travel will just head back to what it was like before. People will get busy at work again, kids will go back to school, parents will get tired, etc., etc. And I think yeah, there is significant change for now. And I think the challenge for church leaders is to sort of pray into that period of time stays extended for as long as possible, and that we learn as many lessons as we can. But I think just sort of looking at how things have gone in, you know, biblical history and massive big events, or, you know, I've been thinking about Moses and Pharaoh, and you get these huge blips, but then it's not very long, is it, before good old human hearts just harden again, go back to normal. The neighbours will stop speaking to us so much. People in church will just, you know, gradually go back to what they were doing before. So I don't think it will have massive long-lasting change. But I think the challenge is what we can achieve to sort of optimize change and difference for good in this window that we've got, however long that is, before essentially I do think things will end up being pretty similar to how they were before. But like you're saying, Tim, I don't know. I mean, I like your sort of hybrid church picture, because I think that's what it's going to be like, isn't it? We're never going to just have, right, church is back. That's not going to happen in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, 18 months. I think we're right. So, you know, it's trying to think, right, well, those that can gather, even if it's only in 20s or 50s or whatever, I think undoubtedly they'll want to. And then what do you do with those that are still sat at home staring at a screen? I've no idea.
I mean, I like change. Well, let me put it, I like God-ordained change. I don't want change just for the sake of change. And my concern is a lot of church leaders will get into copycat mode. They'll look at what others are doing and they'll do the same themselves. I think every church has to find out what is the best medium for them. If for a bigger picture for me, I think this is one of the greatest moments in history. I don't think God didn't create this, but I think he's going to use it.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't know whether I'm out in a left field here, but I think we're on the edge of the Second Reformation. And as the Gutenberg press issued in Luther and all he did for the First Reformation, I think the embracing of media and social media and all of this is God forcing us into recognizing this could be a means of reaching the lost. This could be a means of reaching outside the church. And there are some things that we had before, and the question that's been set to us as a leadership that we have to answer next week. What are the things that we let go that we had before that we don't want to re-establish? And for me, I don't want the mechanics of a Sunday morning ever again. We created this huge machine in which volunteers got weary serving on a Sunday morning. And a lot of people are just saying, it's great, I can just get online, watch the service and not feel whacked or tired for the rest of the day. And I think as leaders, we have to take notice of what those things are.
Mm. Yeah, I think you make a really good point. I think for me, I'm excited. While that string is out, there's time to. I think there will be cultural changes in Christians' hearts, and what I mean by that is, I think, and what I see, and where I want it to go, if I had any say in it, was that it actually creates these church in homes being the basis of a mobilised church. In today's society, people that are connected, people that are connecting with their neighbours, be it online, be it in the flesh. I'm looking forward to the time where we can start to gather in 10s to 20s, because you can then see small churches in homes worshipping together, and then on the Sunday you're brought together. Online maybe this is what God is doing in the whole church. You're hearing stories around what God is doing. So you're seeing a shift from the gathered church on a Sunday to the scattered church in the week. And that basically has been my heart for years, to see the church mobilised in that way. And I think what I'm hoping in this time, while the string is just slowly being drawn back, is that these kind of values and understandings become such a part of us that you don't have to keep going on about that when you come back. It's just another part of what God is doing. And I'm not one to say that there's no place for a Sunday. I think there is, but it's the right way round. There's this sense of the church in the week, reaching out to their neighbours, inviting them in, and seeing that kind of explosion of this sense of being mobilised. You're closer to the ground, rather than this attendance mentality. It's this walking together as church. And I think so. When I look ahead, and I know we're looking ahead, and anything can change, but I definitely think there's going to be a two sort of parallel church. You've got those who are still at home because they can't go out, and there are those that are able to meet, and it's how those run together, which is going to be the interesting thing. But eventually, once there's a vaccine and then people return, it will be. I'm just hoping that those who are wanting to embrace the change are more than those who are wanting to go back to the good old days. Yeah, I think that's really important, and I agree with Chris. It's looking for the God ordained change, and that's the key, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Good.
I think one of the cultural things that's going to shift. I mean, certainly I see. And we all had a bit of a conversation before we started recording, where we all said, how are you enjoying lockdown? And we all said, to be honest, we're quite enjoying it. We're hoping it will extend a bit.
I wasn't there in that conversation.
And partly because I think this point you've made, Chris, is that actually, I think people are just a bit weary. I mean, I know our guys are we've been doing the prayer meetings online, and someone actually phoned me up yesterday, and they said, I love prayer meetings online. They said, we start 8 o'clock, we finish at 9 o'clock, right? And I take my cup of tea, I sit up in my room in my chair, and the moment it's done, I can go back to being part of the family. I really feel like I prayed. And I haven't had the whole going out thing. And I think, your point about Sunday morning is similar, in that I think people are almost just relieved that they haven't got this big stress of getting up at sort of really early on a Sunday morning. I mean, some churches, they're getting up at 6 o'clock, they're getting there, they're getting the equipment set up. I mean, our church, we get there at 9 to start at 11. And we're not, we're a church of about 100-ish, if everyone turns up on a Sunday type thing, and actually getting the PA done and all, and I wonder if it's a question really, will there be the will and the desire from people to actually want to do that, or will there be this kind of reluctance, we did it effectively without all this, why do we now need it when we go back? I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that, but
is it that we're re-understanding what church is? You know, I think, have we got caught, like Chris talked about the machine, the mechanics. You know, I mean, we have a building, so we don't have all the setup and everything. I mean, we turn up and there's things to do, but are we rediscovering what church is really about? And actually, I don't remember in scripture the early church talking about how they had their setup of all their musical instruments when they met. You know, we know they met in the temple, but I didn't talk about what PA. You know, we joke about that, but the core of it is about people, worshiping, singing, and praising is all part of it. But it's actually about that community of faith, that church coming together, loving God, serving people, you know, all these kind of things. Which we're understanding the value.
Sorry, I think we've become too temple centric. We've seen the Sunday, we've put the cart before the horse. We've made the Sunday the major event. And if you've got time, well, certainly in our settings, why not get to a connect group? And I think God's readdressing the balance. And however we look at it, things will change. And I think people may force that change and say, look, we've enjoyed this so much, I'm not sure we want to go back to the old.
Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir when it comes to me, Chris, and that was the shift for me a couple of years ago. That was really turning things upside down. About, you know, we would come to church on a Sunday, then maybe we're going to our groups, but actually it should be we're coming into our groups that also meet on Sunday. That was the new wineskin, as the Lord spoke to me, that was going to contain the new move of God. That's, if I'm bold enough to say that. And that's what excites me about this time, that the focus is on the smaller group. You know, when I heard about what Chester were doing with the connect groups, and hearing the you know, what you were saying earlier, Jonny, I think this is fantastic, because even though you had house groups and then you just sort of reorganized it, it's actually engaged people more in coming together. And we've seen that in Elton. We've seen a re-engagement. We've seen some drop off, and we're having to just keep re-emphasizing the importance, because you know, there's, you know, are there other kind of distractions, but there are still some holding out because they don't like Zoom, I think, or they don't get Zoom, or they find it uncomfortable. But overall, people really want to be together, and I think that's really exciting.
What's your thoughts, Jonny, about kind of, you know, the Sunday morning, how that might change, or do you just think it's going to go back, as you say, or?
Yeah, I'd love to think that we'd have some long-lasting change on a Sunday morning. I think I'm interested, and I think what's being said is right about the sort of the order of the value system in terms of what Sunday is, but what's the real heart of the church, and the midweek stuff, and the connection in the community, and, you know, going all the way back to Acts, and just this, you know, the idea of, it was very much, you know, day to day, we meet in each other's houses, we break bread together, we sing together, we share together, and then, we'll go to the temple and we'll meet. Like, I think that's great in terms of a heart state and an approach as a church, a culture, an atmosphere of where's the hub of the church, and then, you know, having things in the right order, like Chris was saying. I think if we can achieve that, great. I think in terms of the mechanics of a Sunday, they're sort of their own beast, Sundays, aren't they? Because they just have their own momentum a little bit, because we have to have a Sunday service. We want it to be accessible for loads of people. We want to have good, culturally relevant music at that service that's performed quite well. We want to have, you know, teas and coffees. We want to do this, and this. And so they're all good things. And I think, unfortunately, they are innately tiring. This is the thing, isn't it? Like, we've been saying to our guys, like, how are we going to sort of re-enter normal life? Because it's sort of a bit scary already, because everyone's so enjoying the pause and the rest. So for me, it's a realization that we are going to have to go back to rotas and all the joys of rotas and set up, and because it has to, if you're going to have a meeting like that, those things have to happen. How much importance and emphasis is put on that is different, but the actual making it happen is still innately tiring. We've got to get up early and get down there and get set up. But how I respond in myself to those things. I never want to go back to the level of hurry and rush and sort of the chaos of, you know, those things will remain the same, but how I personally and as a church, we engage with those things in a level of unhurriedness and from a place of rest. And that's the challenge for me, because those things, they're going to still be there on the other side. Like John said, when we can all meet, when there's a vaccine, Sundays are going to be tiring again, but you know, they're tiring physically, it's hard work, but am I going to get weary in the same way? That's massively what I don't want to return to, is the sort of that weariness of, oh my goodness, it's another Sunday where I'm speaking and drumming and doing this, and that weariness, I never want to go back to it ever again.
Last night in our leaders meeting, Gary said, Gary, our senior minister, leader, senior elder, whatever he is, good guy. He said exactly the same thing. I don't want to go back to the rush. Yeah. And that was the words he used. And I think this time out is really helping us to reevaluate where we're going. We're talking about whether we have more meetings regionally in different parts of the city or whatever. We're trying to look at the whole thing, how this will function in the future. But it's going to change.
From a spiritual point of view, I still find that the presence of God, for me, when we gather and we're singing together as a group, is powerful. And that's the thing that I've missed more than anything else. I think that the quality of the anointed ministry of those, I mean, all four of us preach on a regular basis. You know, we are anointed to teach and preach and minister. And actually, I think that however we like it, in a sense, people gravitate to people. The reason that Sunday has become so important over so many years is because that's, in a sense, where the good stuff is, truthfully, and that's why people, to me anyway, why people gravitate still towards a Sunday. And I think that it's, to me, the big obstacle I see with the midweek groups is, while we've got these great intentions and these great ideas about we're all going to meet in small groups, it's going to be brilliant, you know, everything's going to happen through there, that those small groups rely so heavily on the quality of good leadership, of good ministry, of good teaching. And so some are fantastic because you have that quality, and others, to be honest, are nowhere near like that. And so
I'd like to respond to that. I think I understand where you're coming from, because I think I've had that particular understanding myself. And what's changed is a change from a teaching-centric kind of church view to what I would call the discipleship view or missional view, where, you know, missional lifestyle is really about discipleship, and it's about celebrating those moments of growth that someone may have as they live out obedience to God. And so it might be that God is growing them in their relationship through these little moments. It's not coming from, I heard Chris speak and then it was like, bam, and then something's changed in me, which I'm sure does happen. I'm not saying these things don't happen, but
every time he speaks.
Yeah, amen. There's and I think the missional view is about celebrating the walk with others and seeing them grow in God and to grow in their relationship with God.
But how does that work? Yeah, get that. Totally makes sense. Right? The biggest problem that we have, right, is that often those groups, like, don't necessarily naturally, organically fit very well. Like, you know, actually a lot of those people you meet with in those groups, you're like, they're great, but I don't find it very easy to be open with those people. It seems to me it's very hit and miss. I mean, that's just honestly, like, some groups really get that kind of vibe going on and others don't. I mean, I don't know if it's just my church where that happens.
No, I think that's the reality, and that's where, you know, equipping leaders and you know, as leaders, equipping our leaders to how to disciple people effectively, resourcing them, encouraging them. So one of the things we've been doing with some of our videos has come along the line of, how do I resource people? How do you pray for someone? How do you lead someone to the Lord? You know, think about these kind of things so people can watch videos, because I'm thinking I want to continue to resource everyone, not just the leaders, but also it's about creating a culture in our groups of, this is why these groups exist. These groups don't exist for you to attend a Bible study. These groups exist for you to grow in God, to serve one another and to reach out. And so, you know, that's been our emphasis recently. But my point was that I think if you have a teaching centric, a lot of my church, and I think your church, that Tim, you know, that you've obviously been in together, but come from a teaching centric perspective. And so a lot of the expectancy is, I will get what I need from the preacher. and then I will go away and do something with that, when actually there's the kind of discipleship and growing with God, you know, can actually happen in my living room as I'm reading the scripture and I'm listening, or as I'm talking, someone's talking to me and just helping me work through something. Is really about me getting closer and closer to God and living out an obedient lifestyle. It might mean that I don't know the Bible as much as Jonny. I probably don't. But am I going on with God? Am I?
No one does. No one does.
But so, you know, so it depends on how you measure success. If we use that, you know, if we measure success by, is someone growing closer and closer to God? Are they becoming free and freer? Or is it, and I'm not saying you can't get that from a teaching-centric church. I'm just saying that to me, they are the two main ways I've seen church, and I know that I want to shift to the missional way, which is starting. It could be someone who doesn't even know the Lord yet, you know, and just teaching them the ways.
I wonder whether or not in this season we need to redefine what we mean. What do we mean by community? What do we really mean by biblical community? To me, it's doing life together. And I've seen small groups that become like mini Sundays, and they don't work. Because, as you say, the person leading it hasn't got a gift in teaching or preaching or doing that. Whereas we encourage people, go around the small groups and find where you fit. Find where you're comfortable. Meet with the people you feel comfortable with. So I think we need to redefine church, community, and words like discipleship. What do we really mean by that? Because I'm not sure whether we know what we're doing in kind of that sense.
Jonny, what's your Jonny thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know really. I think in an ideal world, all of the things sort of would work together and complement one another. I sort of I don't want to throw the sort of Sunday morning preaching slot out of the window and just say no, let's just focus on smaller stuff. I think having everything working as it should be in its right place is what I think is achievably doable in this time. So I don't want to just swing another way now and sort of make Sundays into, you know, they don't really matter. I know that's not what you're saying, John. But yeah, you're right. I think there's always been, certainly in our backgrounds, too much emphasis on the teaching and the preaching, and, you know, they give us all the good stuff to be able to achieve through this time a much more shared sort of story together, like Chris is talking about, living together, doing life together, and for that to be everyone. And I think what I found so amazing in these connect groups is just going around one by one and saying, how's your week been? I've felt more church community there, just in someone telling me how their week's been, and then everyone really obviously caring about the answer to that. I found so powerful. So it's just, for me, it's about everything in the right balance. Like that preaching has been up here and Sundays, and for those things to rise up as well, and for everything to be complementing one another. But yeah, that's, I think, helpful for me. I think the other thing, just as a really practical point that we've sort of might have skimmed over, is in terms of these midweek connect groups, when things do go back to normal, or whatever we want to say, what we're doing now is actually going to still be much better than when we go back, because at the moment we've got, you know, everyone will come pretty much, even if they've just walked in from work, they'll flick the screen on and they're there. Whereas that person normally, they wouldn't have made it to my house group because they've got back in late. And
exactly,
you know,
they're eating their dinner. They're eating their dinner.
So they can't come. And then, on a Zoom, they'll come. And every couple is there because they don't need to get a babysitter. So you've got far more people engaging online. And I think it'll be a bit of an easy trap to fall in, to think, oh, hasn't that been going so well? I can't wait for my first house group back together. And then only half the people will come. And it won't have the same effect as it does when every couple is there. Joe Bloggs, who's just come in and is eating his dinner on mute, is there. And I think, it's just trying to realize that now, because in my mind anyway, I think, oh, this has been great. These connect groups are fantastic. I can't wait till we can all do it again in real life. But but I'm not going to be able to achieve that just on a practical level.
So are you going to, so seriously, do you think that you at Chesterfield, you will carry on with the online midweek groups?
I know, this is the thing. This is what I mean about my sort of string thing. I think as soon as people can meet again, people will go, oh, great, Zoom's finished with, we can meet again. But I think the reality of that, and it's just seeing this coming, is that there are some huge benefits to being online, and that is the sense of how much people connect with it. Because, you know, those guys getting in late from work, people who have to get babysitters, the group will get smaller. So I don't know if we will sort of try and mix it up maybe in terms of, yeah, we'll obviously meet, having a meal together, sitting around with one another is much more my cup of tea than this. But then if doing something online means that I can include far more people, is it something that you have to think about doing? On some weeks you meet, on some weeks you do it online. I don't know.
I think for me, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. We've seen more people. I mean, from a church point of view, we've seen way more engagement than before. You know, people are, as you said, I think this idea that online is not real is rubbish. I think that people are really real online, particularly when you get like this, and somehow people are more happy to connect. And as you say, they can, you know, we've got people making their dinner, or people kind of, you know, on mute, and they're there and they're engaged and they're listening. You know, and I think you're right. I think actually, you know, we talk about this community, but what happens when we say, oh, we're going to go back to normal? And as you say, suddenly you end up with a situation where it's another activity that's exhausting to do. And I wonder whether, you know, seriously, we would carry on doing a lot of our midweek prayer meetings and stuff like that. You know, maybe sort of, I don't know, 3 out of 4 we'd do online, and then 1 we might gather together for a special occasion. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, Chris.
Well, I'm thinking of the book Good to Great, where he talks about either or, but it's not either or, it's and. Yeah. And I think we'll end up with a mixture. I mean, when Jonny talks about getting together in small groups for a meal, I suddenly thought, yeah, I'm really missing that, where you just get together, eat together and relax together and chat together. But we only meet maybe once, twice a month as a net group or small group. But maybe it's kind of maybe we could do online stuff and face-to-face stuff. So I think there's a whole learning process going on here.
Yeah, I agree. Can I just say one thing, just going back to the Sundays, I think the importance of Sundays to me, I think, is that it is the time when the whole church gathers. And I think every church needs a time when they all gather, because I'm a great believer that God has a specific purpose and vision for a church as a whole community. So you have to have some time when that happens, and there has to be some time when those who are leading the church are communicating the vision, where there is opportunity for those who are preaching in the church to bring the prophetic word to the whole church. So, you know, I think whether that's online or whatever, I think there needs this going forward. There still needs to be that something that brings everyone together. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's important. But yeah, no,
one of the. Sorry, yeah, John, I absolutely agree with you. I think just to move the conversation on a little bit, and this is a question as much as a statement. One of the things that, you know, if you move into more of a discipleship model type church, it places a lot more emphasis on individuals to essentially seek God for themselves, to really study the word themselves, to be really in prayer, to be wanting to be open with other people in that way. And I was really hopeful that this change would really kind of throw people onto God. And I would say that if you looked at it like a graph, you know, the first week or two, there was definitely a spike of interest in the things of the Lord. And there was definitely a sense of openness because of this enforced change. But just being really honest about what I suppose I've seen is that I haven't seen a significant shift. And this is why it's a question rather than a statement, and because I'm aware that I might not be seeing the picture. But I haven't seen a significant shift, I suppose, in that desire for people to really engage with God and engage with stuff. There's loads of content out there, but really, like, again, if you look at a lot of the statistics, you know, people are watching it for 1 minute, And really, how much are they getting of the Lord in 1 minute? They're not. They're looking to see what's going on, and then they're bored and they're moving on. You know, we're not. I'm not hearing when you listen to people pray the sense of urgency of spirit, or that. And so I suppose my worry is that again, you know, Jonny's point about the string coming back is really about heart condition, isn't it? It's about, if your heart is the same, sooner or later you'll gravitate back. And I think my worry, I suppose, and this is talking as a church leader now, is that really I haven't seen a significant shift in the hearts of people. And so my worry is that you go to a small group model, but really the reason the Sunday's been so successful for so long is because really it meets the fact that people are basically spiritually a little bit you know, consumerist, or you know, and so actually that meets that model. And I haven't seen yet a significant shift, but maybe that's my view, so that's why it's a question, not a statement. I don't know if you want to comment on that, guys. Chris, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, just to add to that, I have heard stories of people who have, their businesses have closed down, or they're being furloughed, and they're really being thrown back on God. So I have heard a number of positives where in this kind of vacuum, people are saying, what is life all about? What is my Christianity all about? And so they're reevaluating their values.
Yeah.
So there are some positive things going on out there. Yeah, I think we need to pray, and I think we need to seek God that this whole season will be used for what he wants to use it for.
Yeah, I think similar. We've heard testimonies of people that have really found God in a new way, or really been encouraged. It's really been helpful to them, the lockdown, in their relationship with God. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to know unless someone says, obviously, because you're not seeing them, and like you would on a Sunday, you know. But I think what is clear is that those who are not really engaging, for instance, in our midweek groups, I don't believe they're engaging in our midweek groups now.
Yeah.
But I think the Lord will use anything. If people are kind of falling away in this time, it's an opportunity for God to reveal where their heart was at beforehand. You know, you can put on a front going to church every week, can't you? Because you're attending. But when you go through things like this, you start to reveal even to your own heart where your needs are. So I would say overall, I'm encouraged. But even if someone is struggling, it's been good that those strugglers come to the surface. And then, you know, it can be dealt with.
Yeah.
Jonny, what's your thoughts on that, about that changing heart state of people in general?
Yeah, again, not to be too gloomy, I think people's hearts, and I'm talking about, you know, Christians, non-Christians, human hearts are so hard. So you, again, like with Pharaoh, it took for every single person's firstborn to die, for it's like, this is really bad. So I actually think, the coronavirus is massive in terms of its effect. The whole world has stood still. But what I'm seeing is that still, you know, death has touched, a lot of lives and people and families, but for the majority, it hasn't. They've stopped work. It's a bit uncomfortable for a bit, but a lot of people are actually quite enjoying it. And I think that the virus on its own is not enough to sort of really get that sort of urgency in people where they think, something has to change now. I think there will be ones and twos and a minority where people do react like that. But I think, you know, for most people, that's not going to be enough. And so in this time, it's our responsibility to really pray that, this is massive what's going on. But on top, it's not enough on its own. You know, the coronavirus is not going to turn everyone's hearts to God. We must be praying that, that slight bit of upset and disturbance to the norm, we've got to sort of add to that in prayer, that the Holy Spirit would continue to sort of churn people up on the inside, that they would experience real heart change, so that 6 months down the line, they're not just where they were when it all started. I think that's the challenge for me is, and in myself, that's true. I'm not just thinking about people in church and people I know, but I'm quite comfortable, truth be told, at the moment. You know, it's good. I'm enjoying the fact that there's less on. I'm not so tired. I'm not so rushing around. But I know in myself, if I'm not careful, I'll go back to all. I'll sort of come out the other side, and not a lot would have changed in me.
And I think that's my point. I think that's my concern. I think you've articulated that better than I did. But is that really, as you say, that there's definitely some more openness. There's been definitely we've massive win in terms of community, in terms of connection, in terms of content that's out there for people to access. Definitely engaging with people who are not Christians in a fresh way has all been good, and I think shaking up is good. But my worry is that heart change. So maybe it's just, again, not a lot we can do about that except just pray, I guess.
I'll tell you a little story, because Adam Robinson, who's one of our elders, runs the Greenwich Food Bank, and he said he went to the food bank the other day and they were sitting outside having a coffee break, say 12 people, half and half Christians, half non-Christians, and they were talking about spiritual things basically. And what he was saying was it was interesting that there was such an openness and the willingness to talk about spiritual things amongst those who were effectively irreligious, or unreligious, whatever the word is. And I think that there is an openness. The thing is that we don't see in people's hearts. So we have to choose whether we operate on the basis that they are open, there is openness, or there isn't, because we never know. And I think it depends on whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. And I think what we need to do is to, when it comes to unbelievers particularly, is to operate on the basis that there's been an opening, even if it is a foot in the door, to that they might receive something, or even just a break in the ground where a seed may fall. And I think better. My thought has been I want to get whatever the end of this is. I don't want to look back, and this. Feel free to disagree with this perspective, but I've got to be honest, this is it. I don't want to look back and say, I wish I had taken that opportunity, and rather than, not. And so I would rather, try something that fails a million times and get to the end of it, say, well, at least I tried, and never have even known, never have even thought, what if actually that person was open? What if that person, what if I wasn't too careful about maintaining a friendship because I didn't want to keep sending them links to our online service. I think that's kind of like the lesson for me. What am I taking more of an optimistic approach or pessimistic approach?
Yeah, very helpful, John. Very helpful. Yeah, good. Just one last question. Just quickly before we finish, I think one thing that we just need to be aware of is that some people will be coming out of this really quite broken and sad, and I think that whilst you're right, like death hasn't touched some people really profoundly, and some people haven't been touched at all by it in some ways. And I wonder if there's a necessity, like not just to kind of come back together and be like, hooray, we're all back together, but actually also to recognise that there are some who need to grieve, really. And I think sometimes, almost as leaders, we can be so focused on what's exciting and what's changing that we miss the need to just care for some that have been really hurt and damaged by the loss. We've got our next door neighbour's lost her mum, and she wasn't able to be with her mum as her mum died, and Helen's great uncle died, and it's exactly the same story, and it's sad. And so I suppose just a question, really. I don't know what you guys think about that, how you might approach that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listening to Steve Campbell, who runs a church in Cambridge, and he said the very first thing we need to do when we come out of this is mourn. We need to mourn with those that grieve, and we've all lost things that are not necessarily people that we love or of our family, but there is a sense of loss through all of this. And I would hate, as charismatics, we go back onto a high and don't take a season to mourn what has been lost as a nation as well. I think it'll be a crucial aspect.
Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder, Tim, as well. I think I think, I know this is probably for another conversation, but in our response to the world around us, I think the church is going to be uniquely placed, and we need to rethink our role in society. Yeah. I think you've touched on a very important one about what are we offering in terms of ministry to the brokenhearted, to the guys who've lost their job, to to those who are struggling with mental illness and or mental health issues over this time, the increase of depression. There's all sorts that I think that we have to start to think about, positioning ourselves to as a, again, how you do it practically is another big question, but that's definitely something that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Good. Jonny?
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about that. I think my natural response would have been to leg it out of the front door once we could all meet together and have a massive party in church. But I think that's, like Chris said, I don't think that's the first port of call. So, yeah, that's it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that at all. I think, like John just said, actually, I think our voice as a church is for the first time in a really long time, we've actually even got a voice again now. We've got a voice again now, and we will have a voice again. And again, this is going back to my period of time coming back thing. But after all this, we will have a period where we have at least gained a voice again once more. I don't think it's much of one, but it's something. And so I think in being able to sort of, think about the sense of loss and all of that, to be able as a church community, the kingdom of God, alive in communities, we will have a platform now to actually to say to people, look, we're really sorry for you, and to be able to show them something of the kingdom of God. I think a part of this is sort of going off a bit, but in terms of thinking about having a voice for as the church, I think one of the things that's been absolutely genius about all of this is that the whole sort of ideology that we've started living by in society at the moment, this whole sort of radical individualism, it's just been a dagger blow to that ideology, because we knew it didn't work, but now everyone knows it doesn't work. If everyone is just all about the individual, all the shops run out of food and all the key workers come off shift and there's nothing left for them. It's just proved that doesn't work. What works and what we need, even though we thought we didn't, is real actual community. And so this is where the church now and for a period of time afterwards is going to be able to say to people, I'm so glad that we walked through this with God and with one another, and to be able to point to all of this and to say, yeah, this is terrible and this is so sad, but look, we don't walk through this alone. We walk through this as part of this community with our loving Father at the head of it. And for the first, people will be interested and listening now. I think it's such an opportunity. I think, John, just going back to what you said, for me, the thing that's been at the front of my mind in all of this is that window of opportunity that we've got with those who don't know Jesus throughout all of this. How to sort out church and stuff, I don't really know at the moment, but I'm just so passionately aware that, we've got a window of time now and afterwards where the British public are behaving very differently. We've got people in our street just walking out of their front doors and standing in the street in the hope that someone else will, so that then someone can come and chat to them. And it won't be long again before everything goes back to comfortable and everyone's behind closed doors again. So for me, how we respond now, how we respond afterwards, I think we've got such a golden opportunity.
Very good.
I've gone massively off script there, but yeah.
Very good. That's good.
It's a great way to finish, I think, John.
Yeah.
And I think, it's been a just interesting conversation. I found it provocative in terms of just thinking about really the role of groups in the midweek, about the role of the Sunday, thinking through really how we need to pray as leaders at this time, really praying for a real shift of heart, I think, of these things. Really, we're going to do another one of these on mission, I think, specifically on mission, we reach in mission, because I think it's another, it's just, we've talked a little bit really, I guess, just generally, I suppose, it's almost like an opening statement, this mission, but, other avenues to explore. But I think, I think we've got to, as leaders, we've got to recognise that stuff's going to change. We've got to recognise that, try and anticipate some of those changes and hopefully that ask it all for help, really. So that's great. So I'm just going to end it there, but thank you so much, guys.